Yes. City Clerk, can you do the roll call?
Mayor Penserga is absent. Vice Mayor Turkin?
Present.
Commissioner Cruz?
Here.
Commissioner Hay?
Present.
Commissioner Kelly? Here. Vice Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. We'll start with the invocation by Commissioner Hay, and then Commissioner Cruz will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Father God, we're here once again. We ask that you lead us and guide us in the way that you would have us to go as we go through this budget session. Pray, Father, that you be in the midst of our decision that will be beneficial to the city and to the citizen. Bless those in the audience, those who are watching online, the staff, the commissioners, as we endeavor to make the right decision. We pray, Father, that Boynton Beach will benefit in the best way. We know that everything that we do is for the upbuilding of your kingdom. And we'll give you all the honor and we give you all the glory. For it's in your Savior's name we pray. Let every heart say amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So I know this is, City Attorney, do we need to declare anything as this was a recess from Monday?
Yeah, I would start the meeting off by just letting everyone know that this is,
Okay, this is a recess from Monday. We finished Monday with our first budget workshop, ending after public comment. And with that, I'm going to ask my colleagues if there's any additions, approvals, or deletions from this agenda.
No changes for me.
No, none for me.
Commissioner Young?
Vice Mayor. No, thank you.
So the one thing I would like to suggest is, I know that we had discussed on Monday, potentially looking at funding for different options for the culvert in regards to Diane Drive. I know that this commission had consensus on reviewing some of the information that staff had from Monday up until today. And so I would like to either have a discussion and a solution moving forward with that today. And then I also see that there are members from the public, so I'd like to ask if we wanted to add public comment after we get through with today's agenda.
Yes.
Good?
Yes.
Good.
That's fine.
You good?
Yep.
And are we okay to have the conversation about the culvert as well? Okay, perfect. All righty, staff. So I know we left off, we got to choose an option for stabilization. Can we get that presentation, please? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Jumping the gun here, apologize. So the mayor, I understood, couldn't make it this evening, and the city clerk would like to read something into the record from Mayor Penserga.
The mayor asked me to read this into the record. Dear City Clerk and City Manager, I am writing this letter to inform you that I will not attend this evening's continuation of our workshop meeting. As some of you may know, I had a recent death in the family these past few days, and it's been a very difficult time. Between the family gatherings, the viewing, and the burial, I have already canceled the meetings on my calendar and will not be attending any city functions for the remainder of the week. I wish to spend as much precious time as I can with my family. At this point of the workshop, there are only a few items remaining. I expect that all will be well, and nothing is final until conclusion of the budget hearings in the coming months. Please inform my colleagues on the City Commission so they are aware. I am confident the Vice Mayor will do an excellent job chairing the remainder of the workshop in my temporary absence. I thank you all for your love and support, and thank you again for your hard work. Thank you again to our hardworking staff for putting together the proposed budget, and to all those who previously presented. Sincerely, Ty Penserga, Mayor.
Perfect, thank you, Maylee. And is it okay if we add the conversation about the culvert after 4 Charlie, 4C? Am I right with that? And public comment after that? Good?
And we need to discuss the rescheduling of September 19th as well.
Okay, perfect. So we'll include that after 4E. So we'll do 4D Culver, 4E for discussion of rescheduling, and then public comment. Perfect. Is it possible to get the stabilization options on the screen?
Do you want me to go through them?
All right. Staff, can you let us know of the changes that we have before us here?
Sure. Good evening, Vice Mayor and Commission, Mara Frederickson, Director of Financial Services. So before you, you have, the commission has the 4 different options that are proposed at this point. You'll see under miscellaneous cuts that were there on Monday's workshop, additional $101,000 for additional miscellaneous cuts, and we can go through those. The CRA, after their meeting on Tuesday, has offered to increase the amount for the engineer that they were funding. So you'll see some of that has increased there, their internal services, and then we also have the wellness rebates at 46% of the 400,000 that are coming back. So option 1 gives 413,000 back to fund balance. Option 2 gives 1 million back to fund balance, 1,019,000. Option 3 gives 1,083,000, and then you'll scroll over to me, please. Option 4 gives 1.3 million back to fund balance. Do you want to go through the list of the additional cuts, or do you want to discuss the options?
It's up to my colleagues. What do you guys want to do? I see a yes from Commissioner Cruz. Do we want to go over details of the cuts that were made?
Yes.
As a refresher.
Okay, perfect. Yes, please.
All right, scroll down. All right, so, no, keep going down. These are the original cuts. Keep going down. Yep. All right. So, as you can see, in PD, they cut about $33,000, testing for new hires, SmartForce software, and SpiderTech software. Fire cut 17,000 for their fire gear lockers and for their lift bags, and then Public Works cut 33,000 over miscellaneous departments there as well.
Do we have any questions, comments from my colleagues on any of these?
This is option 1, correct?
These are the, yes,
These are the additional miscellaneous cuts for 101,000. So this is spread across every single option.
And on this one, the fire assessment is the same,
Option 1, the fire assessment remains the same and the millage rate
and
remains
the
the
middle
same.
rate remain the same.
Yeah.
When we switch over to option 2,
We can go back to the options. So option 2 maintains the millage rate and increases the fire assessment by $10.
okay. So,
Vice Mayor.
yes.
Mara, what would be because of course the budget is somewhat fluid, depending on what we get in as far as revenue. What would be the priority, whether that be to then potentially add some of the miscellaneous costs, or would any of that difference go to our fund balance? Or would it, how would you handle that?
You mean as far as the cuts go?
Well, so, right, so if we end up getting more revenue
Mm-hmm.
and we're then in the, in the positive, which we expect, how will you determine then, or what will you do? Will some of those miscellaneous cuts be brought back in, or will that balance go directly to fund balance?
Right, so we had spoken about that previously on Monday in reference to the fire boat. So if there's potential that additional revenue comes in, we would bring back a budget amendment to the commission, and that would, we would realize the revenue at that point and then the expense at that point as well.
Oh, thank you.
Is there any other questions, comments from my colleagues, or are we ready to make a decision?
We went over the first two options in detail. Do we want to continue to do that, or I don't know if we want to start discussion on like which one we would prefer.
Yeah, it's up to y'all. I have no questions. I'm ready to make my decision, so I just want to open it up for y'all.
Well,
Okay.
at this stage of the game, I knew I showed preference for option 2 or 3, but after looking at this a little bit further, um, I want to stick with option 1 because I don't want to increase millage rate, and neither do I want to increase the fire assessment. So I'm leaning toward option 1.
Commissioner Kelly?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. You know, since Monday and our discussions, you know, it's been, talked to staff, you know, I've talked to residents, I've heard from residents. You know, the fire assessment you know, it's one of those things where I know the value in the stability of that income. But I also appreciate and understand our residents who are struggling and they maybe don't meet the threshold for a waiver or a reduction. And right now, because we are able to balance the budget and we're able to still put money in fund balance, option 1, I feel like is the smartest option for our residents. And I would love to be able to decrease the millage rate. It's something that's important that's important for our residents. It's something that's important for commercial businesses as well. But without an increase the fire assessment, a reduction in the millage rate is just not possible with still being able to maintain a balanced budget and put money towards fund balance as was recommended by our strategic planning and our budget, you know, consultants. So that's where I stand. I stand with, you know, having a conservative year, not sure where, you know, where finances for, you know, residents and where the future of the economy sits. So that's my position. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you. I wanted to start off with thanking staff. I know for the past couple days, you guys have been spending a lot of time looking at the budget and finding more efficiencies that are possible. I know that takes a lot of time and it's not always the most comfortable conversations to have. At City Hall, I do want to commend staff for taking the time into looking at that and finding more opportunities for reductions in spending, which helps us be more fiscally responsible. I actually do agree with my colleagues. I think that maintaining the millage rate as it is, as it was decreased last year, and also not increasing the fire assessment would be the best route to take at this time, and making sure that we continue to fund balance going forward. At the same time, you know, there's definitely value to the conversations we've had in the past, which includes potentially finding opportunities to have more of a solid revenue going forward. But right now, this seems to be the best option for my neighbors, for my constituents, and I think for all the residents. I'm going to go ahead and support option 1.
What I want to say is 3 out of the last 4 years, when we were reviewing the budget, we actually saw that the city faced a budget deficit and we actually pulled from fund balance. So this year we were able to balance the budget and also add to fund balance. So I just want to highlight that in addition to keeping the millage rate the same, obviously long-term goals, it's staff's goals also. I live in the city. I'd like to see our millage rate come down. I know Boca Raton's millage rate is 3.68. And I think the commission most likely agrees with me that we'd all want to see our millage rate decrease as a city overall. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you, City Manager. As for me, I am in agreement with my colleagues. I believe option one is the best option moving forward. I'm not in favor of increasing the millage rate. I'm not in favor of increasing the fire tax either. I do want to clear up some of the things I had mentioned on Monday in regards to budget cuts. At, at no intention did I intend for that to be personnel. And I think nothing but the best of what staff does. I know I came into City Hall the next day to talk to y'all, and so I want to make sure that there's no concern about livelihood and careers, at City Hall. I think we're growing as a city, and with that, we need the personnel to support that. So I want to ease, any misinterpretation of that. And, I'm glad to see that these miscellaneous cuts, are not affecting personnel. And so I thank staff again for coming back and, almost $400,000 additional into this fund balance, which is huge, right? And I know some of these costs are estimated as well, so we may actually see a larger increase into that fund balance. So it looks like we have consensus. Attorney, do we need to make a motion for this or,
For the millage rate?
well, that'll be
Actually,
next.
because it's a workshop, I don't think that
Right,
we.
I just need the
So you just need
consensus.
consensus. Okay, so you have what we need. Okay, moving forward. So now we're at 4A. So proposed resolution number R23, TAC 081, TAC adoption of tentative millage rate resolution, adopted proposed millage rate of 7.85 mils. What do you need from us, city attorney?
If you need a motion and to include the millage rate in that motion.
Okay, perfect. Do I have a motion?
Wait,
Motion.
I have a question.
Okay.
Um, I could be wrong, but my understanding is that this is a workshop and there's no actual voting on this right now. Isn't it I think in September? That's,
Correct. The public hearings are in September. This is a workshop to discuss it, but we do need to set the millage rate.
right now.
So we,
Okay,
yeah, correct.
okay.
I heard a motion from Commissioner Hay.
Yes, to remain at 7.89.
Do I?
85.
8.5. All right, easy, Tiger.
8.5.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous.
So just to confirm, we're maintaining the same.
We are maintaining the same millage rate. We are not increasing taxes. All right. 4B, proposed resolution number R23, TAC 082, TAC adoption of preliminary fire assessment rate resolution. So I guess we'll discuss, we heard earlier that we are not in favor of increasing the fire tax. Do I have a motion to remain it at the same?
So move.
Second.
I have a first from Commissioner Cruz. I have a second from Commissioner Hay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor say nay. The motion passes unanimously. All right. Proposed resolution number R23, TAC 083, TAC adoption of preliminary canal rate resolution. Do we want to have conversation about this? Does staff have any information that can show us about this? I know we had discussed this last year.
Yes. So this is the same cost as we had last year. We've been able to carry the same cost. This is our special assessment to conduct the aquatic spraying that's on the Lake Eden and Lakeshore canals. This provides a mechanism to fund the aquatic spraying that controls the weeds that are growing in the canal. This year, because we didn't prove it to the tax rolls, we were sent invoices. So invoices were sent. We did get collection of the invoices or the payments from the residents. There are some that have not paid. We are asking for the commission to adopt this resolution so that we can put this on the tax roll and collect it as the assessment. And correct me if I'm wrong, this will be for the following fiscal year, correct? So we still will have to do this year with invoices. The following year, this would be actually on the tax rolls.
Right, we have to adopt the resolution in January to have it on the tax bill, which we didn't do, so this year it would be a direct bill and then.
Right.
So Deputy City Manager, what I understand is that this next fiscal year will be the same, it'll be the same function of how we've been doing it. And then the fiscal year after that, we'll go into tax roll. Hopefully, we're going to have a conversation about these canals and the underlying issue right after this. And, we'll review this again next year.
And in this particular case, the spraying in conjunction, if you decide to do replace the culvert with the bridge, I think we still need this spraying to control the spraying in the canals. So regardless whether you guys fund the culvert to the bridge or replace the culvert with additional culvert, I still would ask that you do this because we need this to properly assess the property because this is private property, private canal, and we need to use that funding to pay for that.
Understood.
That maintenance.
Understood. So in conjunction with addressing the underlying issue. Okay, that's staff's recommendation? Okay, perfect,
sir.
thank you. Do I have any questions or comments from my colleagues before we entertain a motion on this?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to discuss this, if we could. I mean, I don't want to make it a long discussion, but, I've heard, the situation that's been happening with the culvert and the spraying that's been going on. Do we believe that fixing that issue, let's say, okay, so I would like to propose, if possible, to put away some ARPA funding to create a bridge instead of the culvert that's currently there. And that's something that I believe would be obviously budget neutral, and we would be using these federal funds that we have access to right now that we will not have access to in the future. And that can really help this community. They've had this issue for many, many years, almost more than decades. And I believe that maybe putting ARPA funding to allocate for that purpose would be the best way to move forward. At the same time, I think that we might need a full discussion because it is a complex situation. It's not just like, ABC, this is what it is. There's a lot of underlying issues to it. I know that there's a cost for spraying. So maybe thinking going in the future could potentially putting in a bridge in that instead of the culvert, could that help us to maybe remediate some of the maintenance costs that we have going on right now? Because the water would naturally kind of flow freely and be able to go through, in addition to the water, just like any leaves or any palm trees that fall from the side and any weeds and so on and so forth.
I think in the future, if you do replace the culvert with the bridge, that may be an opportunity to reduce the spraying. I don't know that you would eliminate it. Because really the bridge will allow the free flow of the water so that there's no debris, floating debris, which is the biggest issue is the floating weeds that are coming through the canals and stacking up. So the spraying, I would suggest that at least for the next year or two until that bridge, and then we could look at that and potentially ratchet it back or eliminate it if it's successful, if the bridge is successful in the replacement in solving this issue. But in the interim, I would ask that we would continue with the spraying until that such time.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that, Andrew. And I don't know if City Manager, you want to.
A bridge there makes the most sense from a pragmatic standpoint because coming off Lake Eden, Michigan Hill has a bridge there, a much smaller lake, Lake Ida, large lake. It covers both jurisdictions in Boynton and also Delray, and there's a culvert there. Obviously, that culvert was placed there, I want to say back in the 50s or 60s. Engineering improved, technology improves, maybe assessments improved. I know Mr. Gary Fishman, who's in the audience, I'm maintaining my word, sir. So I do think it's a good idea.
So I see us kind of digging into the conversation of 4E. I want to continue this conversation. So I'd ask if we can focus on the item in front of us and then carry on to 4D. So do we have any more questions or comments about the canal assessment? Okay, do I have a motion to adopt this resolution?
I would motion to approve resolution number R23-83, adoption for primary canal rate, resolution as written.
I have a motion. Do I have
All
a
right, I'll
second?
go ahead and second that with the understanding that we're going to continue to find a long-term solution so that hopefully down the road in the next couple of years, we might see a decrease in that canal assessment.
I accept that.
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Cruz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. All right, the ayes have it unanimously. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the conversation about the culvert. So let's carry on and continue.
Well,
Yeah, so
Okay.
remember, we added this as a line item to the agenda.
I know, I just thought it was relevant.
No, it is, I completely
Because
agree
one
with you.
causes the other, so I.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So yeah, that, I guess as previously stated, I would love to add some ARPA funding for the removal of the culvert and the implementation of the bridge. I wanted to get feedback from staff to see, if that would be financially feasible. I know that that would be I think the best long-term solution going forward, and that's going to change this neighborhood. It's going to prevent homes from having their seawalls damaged. And there's a lot of damage in seawalls going on right now, and those are very expensive. So I do empathize with the community, and we want to make sure that we take tangible steps going forward. And we also want to look at timeframes and making sure that, if we get consensus and we do allocate some ARPA funding, before we allocate the funding, obviously we would need to get quotes, but maybe we can just like verbally get consensus to put them aside, some money for that purpose.
So what I'm understanding, Commissioner Cruz, and I agree with you, I think, from what I'm understanding is that you would like to utilize some of these ARPA funds and make sure that that this is put into this year's budget with the bridge option, as one of the options that staff had sent out to us, add that into the budget. My position is I agree, maybe move some things around from some CIPs to make sure that this project can be fully funded in conjunction with ARPA funding.
I just want to remind the commission that we do have an additional $2 million from the JFK settlement from Town Square that also is not earmarked. If we need to utilize some of those fundings and have it like maybe a mixture. I know the study that we did, Andrew, I know Deputy City Manager is very familiar with the study. I think he probably has a cost analysis associated with that study we did.
Yes, so we engaged a consultant, just kind of give you a little history after last year's budget and discussion about the culvert and the canals. We engaged a consultant to do a deeper dive into is actually what the options were, whether it was better just to replace the culvert. One of the complications here is we do have gravity sewer, force main, and water main that are running through here above and below the culvert. So it's not just actually a bridge, we actually have to build a new lift station. So, but the estimates that were in our we were given three options through the consultant. One was to keep the existing and to repair it. The second one was to replace it with a slightly larger culvert. And then the third option was to replace the culvert with a bridge. That option was about $1.2 million. What we would need to do is engage the consultant going forward to get a design completed. And then from there, we would then budget for the construction expenditure. So you are looking at a little bit of a long-term project by the time we get the permitting and the design done. So it could even cross over multiple fiscal years. I don't know for sure until we get our task order, get the engineer. There are other options to do design builds. So I would just ask that if you guys gave us consensus to move this is something that we could bring back to you in September, we would amend the CIP, show the allocation, what we believe would be the cost, and then from there, we could then work the project going forward from there.
Okay, perfect, Andrew. Before I finish with my colleagues to my left, I know that there are some residents here on this issue. Do we want to allow public comment on this issue, or do we want to consolidate it before we generalize consensus?
Well, can,
After we discuss, then do we want to open it up for public comment and then decide, or
yeah,
that's okay? Okay, perfect. All right, we'll start with Commissioner Kelly.
um, my, so Andrew, in the last year plus that we've been talking about this since the last budget cycle, I know there is concern that because of the way this canal is platted, that it's not public property for us to manage. How does replacing this culvert with a bridge affect that? And what would the city have to do, or what would the residents have to do to allow us to do these repairs and take over the true maintenance and care of, this culvert and, or ultimately bridge.
Sure. So the culvert is actually within our right of way. So the replacement of that with the bridge, we wouldn't need any consent or anything from the property owners. For us to actually go in without doing the assessment on the canals, we would actually have to either go through a replatting process and dedicate the canal to the public, which would be the process if we were going to expend public dollars on private property. So that would be the process if we go to choose that route. We did have conversations with the state and with Palm Beach County. They do spraying in the lake. We have talked to them. Mr. Fishman and I have both been in several meetings, and they were monitoring the situation because it's strictly mostly the floating weeds and debris that are causing the problems. So there was some discussion of potentially using state dollars, that they felt like they might be able to do that. So again, as we go forward, if we're not expending the dollars on the canal, or it's not necessary, we just won't build them. But at this point, I'd rather have the money in, because again, it is a problem for the residents. So we want to make sure that we're servicing as well in the interim until we can get to a solution that is a long-term solution.
Gotcha. And then on the other side of this road, or the other side of the culvert, it's partially owned by Lake Worth Drainage District, and it's also partially owned by a City of Delray Beach Police Benevolent Association. What is their responsibility, or how we've been in contact with the Lake Worth Drainage District as well as Delray to see if there's any shared cost opportunities, or are we truly going to have to bear this burden, even though it doesn't only affect our residents?
The actual PBA property, the Delray Beach property, I don't believe they would have a cost or an expenditure or contribute to that. Lake Worth may. We have not reached out to them to talk to it. We have not advanced the project. During the permitting and design process, we'll definitely reach out to them. They may be a partner through this, and as well as from the state, and or look at appropriations as well. There's things that as we move through the process, if we get consensus today, we'll also look at other grant funding opportunities to help this as well. So those are the definite options that we'll look at going forward.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to, if we don't have to, I don't want to be the only ones to bear the burden of the cost of doing this.
Yes.
Because it doesn't just benefit our residents. So if it benefits the flow and the use of other areas or other drainage districts or other areas, then I feel like, we should make sure that we're looking into all of those options as far as cost sharing.
Yes.
But my main concern was the legal concerns, and that was something that we had talked about quite a bit last year, was it being a private canal. But now my understanding is the culvert part is in our right of way. So I am fine. My only concern is just making sure that if we don't have to spend all the money, then I would like to avoid having to use all the, we have other, just like on Monday, Commissioner Cruz, you brought up, the roadways need to be a priority, and talking about we want to use ARPA funds potentially for that. And now we're talking about using ARPA funds for something else. So yeah, I think it'll be good in the coming weeks and coming months for us really to have a priority conference, meeting about these ARPA funds, so that we all have great ideas, and we all have great uses and what we think we want to do with that money. And it goes really quick because there's not a whole lot left. So those are my thoughts on that. Vice Mayor, I support you on this, upgrade of the culvert. I think that it is something that is much needed, that, has been an issue for these residents for a long time. I know it's a small area, and I'm sure that's why it just got pushed off all these years, because it didn't really affect more than, 100 residents. So, but those are my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Hay.
I agree with many of what Commissioner Keller has stated. I just maybe at this stage don't see the cost benefit analysis of doing something this year and putting it aside for until such time we can do more in-depth study as to where we are and who the partners are and how much they plan to contribute, because certainly all the benefit is not just us. And I certainly would like to get a better feel for what we're going into. This has been around for some time. I don't see it being resolved in the next year. I think it's not something that we have to set our monies aside for this year. I think we could look at this, in the CIP program later on. But certainly, I don't feel we're at that point. We have $3 million, I think, or something from the Times Square, another 1.2 million. So if we had to, something miraculously came up, I think we could move some funds around to accommodate the excitement of the others, which I doubt. But as for right now, I think we need to move cautiously and not put those funds aside until such time as we see the commitment from the other side.
What I would say is, at this point, really, we need the design covered, because we don't have we haven't estimated, and I guess, based on conceptual things that the engineer did. So if we can, what we can do is, at this point, if we get consensus to move forward, we would seek a task order, bring that back to you, and then you would have no exact cost of what the design would. We'd get that allocated into the budget, and then we could look at programming future years for the construction expenditure, which may start next fiscal year or late in the year, and then you could carry it over. So I don't know that you have to make a decision today about construction, but we would look at making a decision between now and the budget workshop on the design, so that we have a better understanding of what the cost would be, what the permitting would be, and then potentially any other partners that could contribute as well.
I could live with that, Andrew. I think that would be a good approach.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So what I understand from my colleagues, we all have consensus to move forward with the bridge, but what we want to look at is additional funding from other districts before we expend everything from our own budget. But we do have consensus to move forward with the replacement of the culvert with the bridge.
Yes, sir.
To get that process started. All right, so before we move forward, I know we have some residents on this item, so I just want to,
Public comment at the end.
okay, so we'll just do a public comment at the end, which is now.
This is it?
Yeah, so we have, go ahead,
Wait,
Mari,
wait,
yes.
wait. Sorry, one second. So, last meeting, we were gonna talk very shortly about the update to like the details about
Oh,
where
yes.
CIP funding was gonna go. Is that presentation ready? Is that something we can review
Yes.
today? Fantastic. So,
Yes, staff did prepare a presentation to go over the 1.9 allocated for paving.
perfect.
Mario Guzman, our Public Works Director, I believe, has a presentation that he's ready to present.
Okay,
So we wanna
perfect.
get-
Are we okay?
If
to,
you want to have, I mean, I just don't know, since we talked about the culvert, I don't know if you want to have public comment real quick on just that issue, and then we can move on to the other.
That's
And
what,
then we have public comment to anything that's not on the agenda.
that was my intention, but I know Commissioner Cruz
Yeah.
wanted to consolidate that.
Yeah, I
I
think
think it may be
Okay.
easier just to have it all at once.
Yeah.
It's only 5 or 6 slides.
okay.
It won't be that
Yeah,
long.
it's super
Perfect.
quick.
All right, so we'll proceed with this presentation, and then afterwards, we will have general public comment, public audience.
Right.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's get started.
How you doing? Mario Guzman. Good evening, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, my colleagues, and my esteemed colleagues and members of the public. My name is Mario Guzman, Director of Public Works. Sorry, I was getting chairs for back there, so that's a little disruption. Okay, quick agenda. I also have the city engineer with me, Gary Delmeyer. Just want to talk about selection dynamics and what goes into picking these streets. Just so you guys know, there is no wrong decision when we pave or do any kind of road improvements. What we look at is what's the most right decision. Go back, so I'm going to go over the agenda a little bit. So we're going to talk about the agenda, the selection dynamics, Some of the improvements completed, some of the pending improvements, what our recommendation is for the 1.9 CIP improvements, some of the needs throughout the city from a paving perspective, and here to answer any questions. And because it's the large map of the city, we also have an interactive map that I'll be more than glad to meet with you offline, or I can try to bring it up online over here so you guys can see how we have our rating study. All right, next slide. Okay, selection dynamics. The easy one is road rating from A through F. Typically, kind of one of the thought processes from worst to first. But aside from that, we've also expanded on that. Aside from the rating, the usage. Is it a neighborhood? Is it a through road? You know, what makes the most sense? And I'm not using the word paving with intention. It's road improvements. Because when we start doing road improvements, we're looking at overall traffic calming initiatives. One of the popular ones is speed humps. However, there's lane narrowing, speed tables, all those kind of things that are much easier to put on once we're doing our projects. We also look at sidewalks, ADA compliance, bike lanes, and connectivity throughout the community. So in essence, when we're doing these road enhancements, we're taking that holistic approach because we know that we're going to inherently create a disruption within the community. We'd rather create that disruption once and attack all these issues. Some of the dynamics, just to bring about the different districts, you can see this is how many linear feet of lanes are in each district. District 1, 93,000, which amounts to 14.93% of city roads in that district. District 2, 38.67 city roads in District 2. District 3, 35.62 city roads in that district. And lastly, District 4 has 10.77 roads, city roads in that district. So this is something else we factor into the equation because different districts have different needs throughout the road paving. All right, next slide. Improvements completed. My apologies for the map. Like I said, we can pull up an interactive map and show exactly what's happening. So these are the improvements completed since 2019. About 117,000 linear feet, about 18.79% of our roads are A-rated. That is factoring about $2 million a year since 2018-19. Some of the things we completed just this year, Southwest 18th and Leisureville, Seacrest Court, 2nd to Northeast, a couple streets through there, Northeast 1st Street to Northeast 1st Court, Northeast 2nd Court. So we try to really do communities. We try to stay away from the a la carte, like one street here, one street there. But there are still some roads that we try to do here and there if we have additional funds. So what you're seeing in your map, green, those are streets that have been completed, improvements that have been completed. Next slide. Pending projects. These projects are funded by the 302 account, which is, as I spoke on Monday, this is our true capital improvement funds. A lot of those funds are either funds that were transferred over from the 303 surtax. We do get grants throughout these projects. There's TPA, there's agreement that we have with the city of Delray Beach, and that's on Gulfstream. So that's just a snapshot of that's what's in the mix right now. Upper right-hand corner, you can see the big, all those streets in red, that's the Sandcastle area. Many of those streets are D and F rated. However, we have the grant that we recently had, so you can see that we're looking at that completion for 2025. So these are streets that fall into a poor rating criteria, but this is in the mix, for lack of a better term. Funds have been appropriated for these projects, so these are the pending projects. Next slide, please.
Mario,
Yes.
what's our overall goal for our cities as far as A to F? We're trying to get them all to be so many C's and D's.
We want them all A's. That's the goal.
You want A all the way?
Yeah, I think realistically, you want to have a good number of A's and start to plan for the C's. So when they start becoming C minuses, we're paving them. You don't want to pave them when they're D's and F's.
Okay.
That's the goal, ultimately. Go back one slide. I'm sorry. Go forward. I don't have the clicker. All right, so our 1.9 million CIP recommendations, Lake Boynton Estates was actually a project that we wanted to do that was slated for last fiscal year. Because we ran out of money with just the cost of inflation and construction, we could not complete that project. Those roads are D and F, if I'm not mistaken. Gary's back here, he can elucidate that a little bit. But we want to, because that project was slated for fiscal year '23, we'd like to start that project in fiscal year '24. With the cost of materials, we're projecting 1.5, the way things have come up significantly. If there's a savings, we can try to do some other streets. As you can see, we estimated 1.5 million for fiscal year '23. And then we also have a couple of streets programmed throughout that encompass that. So that's our recommendation for CIP the 1.9 in CIP. Next slide, please. And then I also wanted to identify the needs throughout the city. Cherry Hill is one I presented before. That would be connectivity, roads that tie into the school. We also have Chapel Hill. We ended up adding to Chapel Hill. Again, you have construction costs. You're having that, you're moving the construction out there. While we're there, the last thing I'm going to do is do Chapel Hill Boulevard and then go back 2-3 years later or another year to do the side streets. If we have an opportunity, let's take care of it. We also have Boynton Lakes and Meadow. That's a very highly used through street. And then lastly, we've been spending a significant amount of money at Gulf View Harbor just with street sweeping and the deterioration of that street. So we also recommend Gulf View Harbor, and you can see it in our map. So that's the needs throughout the city. As I said earlier, you can't go wrong with anywhere you're paving, but what makes the most sense? So this is a combination of through streets and neighborhoods. Next slide, please. Okay, currently we have 18.79 A streets. If we combine all the pending projects and assuming we get funding for the needs, we will have 45.5% A roads. So that'll be a significant improvement overall in our street quality. And that's it. Next slide. All right, questions? Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mario. Commissioner Cruz, do you want to start since you brought this forward?
Yep. Thank you for your presentation, Mario. That was a question I had from last time, so that was a very thorough presentation. Thank you for the percentages that show what percentage of each district has gotten projects. Because we're talking paving, and I know I've mentioned this last meeting, but and Commissioner Kelly, you mentioned this a few minutes ago, just wanted to reiterate that I would like to request consensus from my colleagues to pave 27th Street in Gulfview Harbor. When I went to a recent town hall in the neighborhood, it was said that, and Mario, you were there as well, they talked about they haven't had paving in over 13 years, and the last time that the roads were paved, it was, I'm not sure of the professional name of it, but it was a very thin layer.
Microsurfacing. It's called microsurfacing.
Microsurfacing, thank you. The last time that it was paved 13 years ago, it was microsurfacing. So that's creating problems right now, and the roads look pretty terrible. I agree with you, Commissioner Kelly, with your comment made earlier. I think that anytime that we can find opportunities for decreasing what we spend on any project, that would be highly desirable, and we definitely want to go in that direction. And I would specifically for my district, I would like to request ARPA funding if we don't have CIP funding, because we don't, as we have projects already allocated for that purpose. I would like to request for ARPA funding to cover the paving of 27th Street. It's going to be about $1.2 million or so. Is that correct, Mario? Could be plus or minus, depending on.
Well, and part of the Gulfview Harbor recommendation was actually 27th and the adjoining streets. Again, it's just, if you're going to mobilize construction out there, we're there. Let's do it all. Yeah, you're wrong there.
Okay. So that is the only comment I have. Thank you, Mario, for the presentation, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start on my left with Commissioner Kelly.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Mario. I know you and I have talked a lot about, in particular, the Meadows and Boynton Lakes, and I will fight very hard for my one little street in District 4. You know, and I know that I thought it was more in the works than it is. So I would like to see that become a priority because that's something that we've been telling the residents that was in the works and in process and on the grading scale and up there needing to be replaced and addressed. And so I would like to see that become a priority or more of a priority. I know that, you know, here we're talking about funding but that's, you know, that's an area that it also was poorly paved and we're running into the same issue where, and, you know, in the Meadows, there's a lot of little finger streets. And I know that they're slated for a couple years down the road. And I know that Gary had driven around with one of the HOA presidents to address, you know, see what issues were on some of those finger streets. But that's, you know, that's an area that you know, I really want to make sure that, you know, it doesn't get lost in the shuffle of everything because that's something that we've been, you know, talking to the residents about and telling them that, you know, we're working on, you know, it's on our priority list. And so I really want to make sure that it does stay on our priority list and that it does get addressed. So that's my position, as I would like to make that a priority for my District 4 residents, and that's where I stand.
I definitely can respect you fighting for your district and your residents. The question about Commissioner Cruz putting forth $1.2 million for Gulfview Harbor, those roads, where does your position lie in supporting that?
Well, I mean, we need,
Do you want to keep this conversation going?
I think it needs to keep, I think it needs to keep going. I can't, I mean, we have to see where maybe we can all fit in a project and support each other in this. But we've talked about a lot of different uses for ARPA funds and other funding. And so I want to support every one of you with things that are important and issues that are important with your residents. And I would hope that you would do the same for me.
Yep.
So I want to support Commissioner Cruz and support her residents. And I would hope and expect that she would do the same. And so I'm leaving it to city staff to figure out how. That's
Perfect.
their job, is to figure out how we can truly support each other in what we're fighting for our residents.
What I would suggest is, if you're comfortable to kind of give us an idea of what amount of the ARPA funds that you'd like to allocate towards paving, then we could come back between now and the budget hearings again and provide what we think, how far we can make that money go.
Okay.
And give you an idea that we think we could do maybe Gulfview Harbor and Meadow Lakes or maybe some portion of Chapel Hill or Heart of Boynton. So what we can do is I think, how much ARPA funds do we have left? 4.5. So if you were going to allocate, let's just say it was 3 million or 2 million, we'll come back with a proposal showing you how far that 2 million will go.
Just so, that's $4.5 million left in ARPA funds. Okay, perfect. Commissioner Kelly, did you have anything else?
Vice Mayor, I just, and this is a question for staff. We have and this was a misunderstanding on my part, talking about Chapel Hill. We were all on Monday's meeting. But the Chapel Hill, the money that is set aside for Chapel Hill that's in CIP now, this road paving is a different project? Or is this what you were saying where you would want to connect it all because there's already that other portion that's allocated?
Which project? I don't think that next year's budget, Chapel Hill, is a project. That's one of the ones that's kind of like, it's not a wish list, but that's the next set of priorities that we would look at using the ARPA funds for.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, so these projects here in line brings it at about roughly to 5.5 million if we were to do all of these projects. And keep in mind, we have a set schedule for 25, 26, 27. We picked a lot of we try to do a combination of through streets and neighborhoods. Assuming all these get approved through any kind of funding source, it's going to bump up the schedule on other things. But to your point, if it's, these are the priorities we recommend citywide.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hay?
Uh, Vice Mayor, I just have a few observations. I'm really excited about seeing I know it's probably difficult, but a lot of those potholes that you have right in the middle of the road, some are deeper than others. You can run over some and it's pretty smooth. And then you run over some of the others and they like almost knock your car out of line. Is there some type of standard or something that we could raise those up that are too low, or is this anything like that on the horizon?
And I'll pass that on to the pro engineers that I have. The little that I do know, aside from just milling and paving, which is done, and that's the easy way, we look at a lot of road rehabilitation. The foundation of the road needs to be repaired. And what you start seeing is if the road in itself needs to be repaired, you start paving it, it's just that pothole that we patch is gonna sink eventually. So
Is there a certain distance from the surface to the top of the lid for the pothole?
I'm gonna see if, is Gary over here from,
He's right behind you.
oh. I'm gonna get the pros involved on this one.
I know Gary has all the answer.
Thank you, Commissioner. Gary Denmeyer, city engineer. Uh, Most of the times, if there's potholes, I think you're talking about manhole lids.
Manhole,
storm hole
yeah,
lid, yes.
yeah.
There's some occasions where, yes, they're a little bit lower than the road surface. I can think of a couple of places. There's some certain things we can do. Sometimes we put riser rings on them. The utilities department doesn't like me to say that out loud. But anyways, what the riser ring does is it raises up the lid. Sometimes some of the lids we've got are older lids too, and if it's a sanitary manhole lid, the because there's two rings on those lids, and sometimes due to age and wear and tear, they kind of fall in their frame, and so they're a little bit lower than the edge of the road. And really, the only way to repair them is to cut out the road and then remove the asphalt from around it, expose the lid, put on a new lid, put in a new manhole. So it can be a little bit pricey, and if it's an area of concern or something that pops up, usually some of the things that I do is I try to regrade the road in the area of the manhole. Sometimes I try to raise it as we're repaving the projects. So I'm sensitive to those issues too. But if there's something that's particularly troublesome for you, let me know, and I can get on it. I can do a little project, and for a couple $1,000, I can probably get it corrected.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Sure.
I'll be in contact.
Oh, please do.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you, Commissioner Hay. Commissioner Cruz, I think you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to my colleagues. I know there was a comment made earlier about ARPA funding and understanding that, we each have our districts to report to and to to support. So I completely understand that, and I support the paving on your district as well. I think that, we've supported different projects that are, recreation and such in the past, but I think going forward, we want to make sure that we do things that are needed, and then we save the things that are wanted for the future. I think road paving, and as we mentioned before, at the prior budget, infrastructure is this administration's priority, and we want to make sure that, obviously, we can't pave every road, but if we can at least get a little bit of support for each of the commissioners for their districts so that we can all support our constituents equitably, that would be phenomenal. And that's it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner Cruz. I myself have two questions. First question, the percentages that you showed earlier, those are the percentages of linear foot of road in the city, correct? So what I saw was that District 2 and District 3 had those higher percentages. Second question, if we can go back to the slide.
I believe
Yes,
it's slide
perfect.
one. For the percentages, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can go there, but I mean, that is what that data is. Okay. Can we go back to the slide that had the cost of each project? Because I know earlier we discussed the replacement of the culvert for the bridge, so I want to make sure we're not, going too dry here. So I know previously that Chapel Hill project was $200,000, I think. And so you know, my intention of utilizing ARPA funds for the replacement of the culvert remains the same. I was hoping to be able to hit two birds with one stone and replacing the bridge and then also getting those roads repaired. So I want to continue the conversation with the roads in Chapel Hill. That is a necessity. Um, I do want to put the bridge as my priority, and I want to work with staff diligently before September to see what we can do to try to make both happen.
Right, and you are correct. The initial presented was for Chapel Hill Boulevard itself.
Correct.
We expanded on that, drove the streets, and we just thought about, we do these contracts and we have contractors pay these roads. There's a mobilization cost to that. So we just have to factor, well, we're out here, we're disrupting. Let's get ahead and do the side streets while we're there. Then we can take it off our program and not have to worry about that section for the next 10, 15 years. So that was a little bit of the mindset
Okay.
that I said earlier. Which answers most right? I don't know. That's why we're here talking about it, and we can mod and adjust, but we look kind of big picture to get it off our book.
Would it be possible to maybe stick with the original project and utilize that excess funds for this bridge? And then with, say we can get some grants in the future from the other managing districts that canal affects, then maybe go back to this higher ticket item.
Yeah.
Is that something we can,
Yeah, we
okay,
want direction.
perfect. Commissioner Cruz?
Just to follow up on that, it's, as we saw in the percentage slide, which is, can you move it up?
First slide.
Yep. So, I mean, just from looking at this, we can see that District 1 and District 4, which are the western portions of the city, have been, I don't know how to put it nicely, but, have not had as much support with regard to CIP projects in the past. So we do want to make sure that we're fair and equitable with with the entirety of the city. Thinking about, and I know we want to close the conversation down, but just real quick, thinking about the ARPA funding and how we have $4.5 million of ARPA funding remaining. We also happen to have 4 districts in the city. I think the fairest thing to do would be to, per se, split it equally for each district so that each district can get a nice project, and then the commissioner of the district can really choose what their preference would be, for that ARPA funding. That way it's fair. That way, you choose what you want for District 3, I would choose what I want for District 1, and so on and so forth with Commissioner Kelly and Commissioner Hay. That's kind of what I wanted to put out there.
Do you have any comments from my colleagues on that?
Yes, I can understand what Commissioner Cruz is saying, and I agree with her. The only comment I would make is that when we started out, the amount of funding that should have been spent on each of the 4 sections was not done, and some were done substandardly. So in order to bring all those up to standard, we may have to spend a couple of bucks more on certain areas to make sure that when we walk into our city, we can't determine where the slum and blight area is in our city. And in order to do that, you may have to spend an extra dollar to bring everything up to par.
Commissioner Kelly?
Uh, I don't have any additional comments. I agree with you, Commissioner Hay, that, we do know, and I think that as a commission, we do recognize that there are, that, District 2 needs attention and District 3 needs attention. And I don't think, I know Commissioner Cruz's heart is in the right place, and we're just each fighting for it, but we fight for District 2 and we fight for District 3 just as much as we do our own district. So you have my support in making sure that we're doing the best for all of our residents. Thank you.
Okay. My position is that I think I'm okay with utilizing those funds equally in each district, but I do want to note that there are further plans that we will discuss, in our joint workshop between us and the CRA. And so I think there may be potential funding sources also. And so, if there's some funding that's needed, we may have the opportunity to top off the necessary funding to get these projects done. So that's where I lie. Does staff need anything, or do you have a general idea of what the next steps are for ARPA funding?
Yes, sir.
Perfect, thank you very much. All right, moving on. I know that staff wanted us to decide if we were going, or when we were going to reschedule the September 19th meeting. So the public knows there is a conference that is related to the CRA that many of us will be attending, so I don't believe we'll have a quorum. Do we want to discuss that now, or do we want to have city staff reach out to us independently and decide the best date?
I think we really need to have all 5 of us have input to that.
Okay,
So I don't think now would be the time to make that decision.
Can we talk about it at Tuesday's meeting?
is that okay with staff?
Tuesday's meeting
Okay,
probably a
perfect.
better
All right, so
time.
we'll discuss that on Tuesday.
Right.
Do we have anything before public comment? No? Okay, all right, we're going to go ahead and start with public comment. I want to remind everybody that you'll have 3 minutes.
I'm going to need more than that, I'm sorry.
All right, you're not going to get it.
Well,
So,
take me out in cups, chief.
just remember you'll address this body as a whole, and, do not address any individual staff. Yeah, I got it. I'm going to change it, and we'll go from there.
Is there any way to go to page 43 of the budget?
All right,
Is there a way to do that?
your time has started.
Well, I'm asking if there's a way to go.
This is not a Q&A.
If there isn't, then
43.
if not, let me know. Anyway, page 43 references the detailed expenditures of the city commission. In that are new expenditures totaling $180,000. A clothing allowance for the commissioners, $17,500. A car allowance of $51,000. An increase of their expenses to an increase of $23,000. An office stipend of $70,750. And a health savings account of $16,000, totaling $178,250, almost $180,000. Divide that by 5, that's an extra $36,000 a year in the pockets of our elected officials. There was a email tree and phone tree that started last night that reached out to hundreds of people. It'll be thousands. I can tell you this is making people madder than a hound dog with a head cold. Okay? And I'd hate to see anybody try to run for reelection trying to put an extra $36,000 in their pocket each year. And if I'm wrong, explain it to the folks that I'm wrong. But that's what it's come to. I don't know if this is the spot that drops into the piranha tank, but I'm here. And this just is not right. When you run for the city commission and you serve, you know what you're going to get paid, you know what it entails, and you're here for public service, not to enhance your income. Well, I didn't know I was delivering a sermon. Anyway, you guys, you got to take that 180,000 and add it to the budget, whatever the I think it was 400 odd thousand that you guys saved, because that 180,000 could be used for speed bumps and speed humps in other places. It can be used for that. I wasn't going to speak about this, but I want to thank Commissioner Kelly for standing up for the Meadows in relation to the road. Our microsurfacing was done over 15 years ago, and in 6 months it started to disintegrate, and it needs to be done. I mean, I love Jeff Livergood. He was a great guy, but that was a bad mistake he made. Anyway, get rid of your money increases. It's not a good idea.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
I did. I'm sorry. David Katz, 67 Midwood Lane.
Okay, next person.
Next person, please.
My name is Gary Fishman. I reside at 3504 Diane Drive. I've lived at this address for 32 and a half years. I'm in the community of 37 homes that, as you are aware, has a huge problem with our culvert and canal. Thank you for discussing it today. When the city allowed our neighborhood to be put in, they constructed the culvert that was too small and too low and only designed to carry water. I recently fell while at my dock clearing the weeds. Though not life-threatening, it is quite painful. My doctor has seen my serious bruises and is extremely concerned. The culvert needs to be changed, please, period. A bridge like the bridge further to the east over the L4 canal works for proper flow. We need a bridge like that. When funding is sought, we thank you for your efforts in that direction for the funding, but, and a big but, the city does bear financial responsibility for installing the culvert. We need a bridge to replace the culvert. We have had a death while a citizen was working with the city to move the weeds towards their vacuum truck last year because of the toxic swamp due to the lack of flow from the improper culvert. This is a health issue. Also, with the malaria on the rise, a mosquito issue is great concern. Property damage from the flooding is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and rising. Please, this year, let's get the votes, budgeting, and searching for funding. This neighborhood has 37 homes, as mentioned, and is a big part of Boynton Beach. It is time to properly fix the problems that the city had created and continues not to make the necessary changes. Please, we need the bridge. Now is the time for us to get the votes and the funding. Speaking of funding, imagine to be a city commissioner or mayor of the city of Boynton Beach, and you need an additional 1 to 2 jobs outside of their city responsibilities to pay their bills. We as citizens should band together, if necessary, to vote to increase the salaries of our hardworking commissioners and mayor. Let's work to increase their salaries they are so deserving of. I feel strongly about the culvert. I really appreciate your addressing the culvert. And we don't want to wait year after year. I've made about 30 speeches, and this culvert, I lost a friend, and it's a fact, from this toxic culvert. I'm using up my time here. I really appreciate your talking to us about this. I really and truly hope that in the future, in the near future, we can get the bridge and you can help us, please. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Next person, please.
Hey, staff. My name is William Cunningham. I'm at 3425 South Lake Drive. I want to thank you all for discussing the culvert. Um, We are the most important canal for funneling the water from Lake Ida to the locks in Boynton Beach. And not only are we the most important for the flow of water from the main lake, we are important to FDOT, I-95. We are the canal that floods all the water off over there. So, you know, we have oil, we have gas, we have toxic stuff that comes from I-95. So we need to improve the flow to the locks. However you guys see that fit, I'm on board. Just, and if you guys think that we own the property, why don't we sell it to you guys? Or we figure out a way that we don't own it anymore? Because I know by right I can build out 15 feet from my seawall, but I think, you know, if we're going to go tit for tat that way, let's just figure out something in the middle where we can work together. Because if we own it, I mean, I have people fishing in my backyard then. I'm going to start telling them, this is my property, get off my land. You know, but I don't think that's, you know, you can't do that to people. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next person, please. Let me get the clock going for
Cindy
you.
Falco di
Give me
Corrado.
one second. All right, go ahead. Thank you.
Cindy Falco di Corrado. I've been here many times in regards to different situations, and as you all know, we've spent over $31,000 on that LGBTQ sign that's in the road, which I hear it's up for repairs again, which is going to cost us another $9,000. This is absurd. You're wasting our dollars. Again, I'm addressing you as our employees, because we are the employers, we the people. I wanted to bring to your attention again, also on page 42 of your budget. Many people don't know that there has never been a category for clothing allowance. Now you're asking for $17,500 to wear clothes. Now I go to work, or when I went to work, I paid for my own clothes. I don't understand why you're getting a clothing allowance for, or proposing a clothing allowance for $17,500. Another new category I noticed, which is very mind-boggling, it's never been done before when I looked in the past records, is the car allowance for $51,000. An expense allowance that goes up to $23,000 from last year for doing what? Your job? I mean, that's your job. You're part-time employees, correct? Of We the People, correct? So we're here tonight to discuss the budget because it is our money. And I'm very concerned about where our dollars are going. And I really don't understand why also the HSA at $19,250, what is that? What are we doing? Where are we using all this money? You get paid a salary, you do your job, you get paid for your job. This is just beyond comprehension. It's unacceptable that we the people have to listen and hear this, and we do not consent. I want you to know, we do not consent to this budget at all. This is a highway robbery to the people. What benefit does this have to us, the taxpayer, and it's our money? Tell me, what benefit? There's none. And this membership, to do what? At a price tag of $40,165? That's number 54-20. And then 95, number 47, community investments for $30,000. What are we investing in? Where does that money go? I don't know. So I want to ask you, city commissioners and the mayor, to give a full transparency. I would like to see, and all of us, I'm speaking on behalf of many of We the People, would like to see a record of your honest day's work and why we're being charged this extra dollars hidden in other kinds of situations, clothes allowance. Also, there's also two bills on there for if you haven't looked at it, for the cellular phone, number 41-15. The total's $3,000 total, $3,720, because there's two spots in there for your cellular phones. Now, I don't know who put this budget together, but this is piracy. This is stealing from We the People. We don't make this kind of money. We don't get this kind of perks. What is this? You work for a government. You are public servants to serve We the People, your employers. And I haven't seen a park in Forest Park yet, by the way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Go ahead, Ms. Ware.
Thank you. Susan Ware, Boynton Beach, Florida. First of all, I want to say, to continue on with the theme, I think giving the five of you approximately 125% raise on, you walked in knowing what you were going to be paid. This is a part-time job. We don't get emails back. We don't get calls back. What part of your job are you doing that takes so much time that you need 125% raise? I'm sorry, I work very hard and I get like a 2% raise. Thank you. I know most people in this city probably get a 2 to 3% raise. Please tell me which city employees are getting a 125% raise, because you are just smacking them in the face. And you and I both know our city employees work so much harder than the five of you. And if anyone's going to get a raise, it should be them, not you. You walked in knowing what the amount was you were going to be paid. It's a part-time job. And granted, Ty wants to be strong mayor and take over and run the city like West Palm, but that's another issue. And I could see where he might want some more money then, but that's not going to happen either. But at the end of the day, as Cindy said, you don't need money for clothes. You have clothes. I have to buy my work clothes. Waitresses have to buy their work clothes. Employees at every company in the city have to buy their own clothes. You can't tell me the lawyer here asks you for money to buy his suits. No, it's part of his paycheck. That's where his money goes. So you know what? This obscene amount of wanting 125% raise. And by the way, that's on top of the 5,000 approximate dollars they're each going to get that free ride out to Texas next month. Yeah, so keep that in mind too, everyone. Number two, and I've brought this up with the city manager before, the Wildflower Foundation, that was the speaker at my Bloomin' in Boynton event, they were offering grants for landscaping. The city of Boynton did not even reach out and ask. They're ending up with money left over to roll into next year because not enough people asked for grant money. You could have had landscaping around City Hall for free, but instead you chose not to apply for that grant. Third of all, getting to the Diane Drive thing, you desperately need to do this. Think about how long this has been there. And I'm sorry, these people pay an insane amount of taxes because these are high value homes. They make our city look good. They are super high value. They pay more taxes than everybody else except Inca. And the least you can do is give them some of their tax money back in the form of fixing this problem that's been going on. And all it takes is one person in Boynton Beach getting malaria. And well, no, that's going to happen because that's Boynton's luck. And fourth of all, for the roads, take the 900,000 you wasted on the schools that they couldn't even tell you what they were using it for, except Poinciana, and this 180,000, and then there's over $1 million to help cover the road problem. And I'm sorry, if you're going to look for equality, then you should be looking at D2 and D3 have the most roads. They should get the most road money.
Thank you, Ms. Sawyer. Next person, please.
Hi, my name's Mickey Isaacson. I don't actually live in Boynton Beach, but I bike on A1A, and I fell off my bike in one of the swells of the road, and my tire couldn't go over because the lip on the difference between the swell and the road was too much, and I broke my hand and hurt my thumb, and I haven't been able to really function well. And so I think you should take some of that budget money and fix the road so bikers can bike without injuring and endangering their lives and have to ride in the street with the cars.
Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Candace Rojas and I live in Boynton Beach, Florida. And I'm here to say I thought this was a budget workshop, but I felt like it was monopolized, the conversation was monopolized on other topics. But what I'm really here to say is that I believe that the budget should be transparent, that all of you work hard and deserve an honest pay for an honest wage, but there has to be transparency. So there should be something in place so people feel good about when you propose budgets, that they feel like, yeah, well, they're working hard for us. Because I do know a lot of the politicians get presented with bribes, and if they're not paid enough, they might accept the bribe out of desperation. So we want to make sure everyone's paid equitably so they don't end up in prison. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Brother Victor Norfus. I live at 225 Northwest 6th Avenue, Boynton Beach, Florida. I'm currently a member of the Boynton Beach Historical Preservation Board here in the city of Boynton Beach. And I wanted to mention one of the members who has recently passed. His name is Minister Bernard Wright. We all know how diligently he worked for the city, but a lot of people don't know that he was also on the board here with the city. What Minister Bernard Wright was out there doing was he was protesting an event where a young man was killed, where he was chased by the police, where there was misunderstanding, misuse of rules or just an accident. But the fact that he was out there, he lost his life protesting that event made me aware of the Black Awareness Day, which it would turn into the Heritage Celebration. The Black Awareness Day back in the 70s and 80s was created because the police at that time shot up a woman on Cherry Hill. They shot her about 10, 12 times, left her to die, but she did not die. We had the Black Awareness Celebration for years, but then the CRA took it over. They had it for a couple of years, and then they canceled it. The police here probably don't know anything about that, and the new ones that are coming aboard, they're dealing with what has happened in the past. Black Awareness Day and a Heritage Celebration should be reenacted for this unity celebration that we're having next year. The unity celebration is based on 100 years ago. The city was separated, black and white. So the Heritage Celebration, Black Awareness Day, is very important for the city. I also want to mention briefly about the roads. The roads and the funds should be allocated based on need. I understand that you want everybody to get their fair share, but everybody is not up to an A or a B. The districts that are at their down by the F and the D, they need more funds. That's why those funds are allocated. You do not need a raise. The problem that I have with the raise is that you give yourself a raise. You are city employees, but yet you don't make it across the board. So if you get a pay increase, every city employee should get a pay increase. But if you look at that, you would probably say that's too much. Well, if it's too much for the city, it's too much for you. This is not the first time you've given yourselves a raise and no one has had an opportunity to object. I hope that the city and other people will get together and create some type of petition so that we can state that any raise that you get, we have to approve it in the next election. And you should not be able to give yourself a raise until the next term. People don't give themselves a raise while they're in office. They give themselves a raise for the next person that comes along.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next person, please. Go ahead. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and City Managers and Attorney for allowing me to speak tonight. I want to also talk about this raise issue. We have a city of 90,000 people with commissioners who have to do a budget for 90,000 residents on a part-time salary. They have to work multiple jobs. How can you guys and how can our commissioners possibly serve their districts well if they're working all day and only have till after 6 p.m. to make calls when everybody's gone? Places are closed. They're not in City Hall where they should be. Personally, I don't think you should have a part-time job. I think it should be full-time with full-time benefits. You should work for the city. My issue is that our commissioners have their hands tied and not able to do as much as they want to do. And other people who would like to work as a commissioner, they might be very qualified. They might be wonderful people. They might have a PhD in city planning, but guess what?
Let's be a little bit quiet and let her speak, please.
They can't run for public office because they can't afford to quit their job. They can't afford to, and don't have the time to work a second job, a third job, a part-time job. So I applaud you for all that you do and working a full-time job on a part-time salary. You deserve more than what's on page 43 of the budget. You deserve more. I also look at the car allowance. They're driving from here to Orlando, to West Palm, to Miami to go to meetings. I know that upper management in the city, they have cars. Why don't the commissioners have cars? Other people have
Come
vehicles.
on, let's not interrupt the speaker.
I think that you guys are dedicating your time to help our residents. And as one resident, I am very appreciative. And I think that you should have an office, that you should be in an office, that you should get paid for your time and your efforts and your work. And I think that we as residents should look at what you do and not just looking at a little bit of money that is a token for all that you do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
State your name for the record, please.
I'm sorry, what?
State your name for the record, please.
Phyllis Pacelli, Pacilli. I'm also a member of the Art Board.
Thank you. All right, next speaker, when you're ready, good to go.
Good evening. John Dames, Post Office Box 713, Boynton Beach, Florida. What concerns me is when commissioners give themselves a $35,000 raise, when people in this community are starving. Commissioner Hay, in your district, too, I partner with a minister and we feed the homeless twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month. And we pay out our own pockets. We don't ask the city for $1. Right here in this district, and you have the audacity to give yourself a $35,000 raise, part-time employee. I've been in government for 35 years. I've never seen part-timers get a $35,000 raise. Never. Off the sweat of taxpayers in this city, and you telling me that's fair? You decide to just do whatever you want to do off taxpayers' money. You mean to tell me, Ms. Kelly, as a paralegal, your boss gives you a $35,000 raise?
Please address us as a board.
I'm talking about all of y'all, every one of y'all. And in any profession that you in, nobody gives you a $35,000 raise. No, none of you. Off of the sweat and the backs of the taxpayers in this city. And you got homeless people. And I work for the I work for the county, and I work for the village of Royal Palm and Parks and Recs for over 35 years. And I see people every day that has jobs that sleep in their car because they can't afford rent. And you're giving yourself $35,000 raises? And I'm going to say this from a biblical standpoint, Reverend Hay. And you understand, I don't know about the rest of them, but you understand from a biblical standpoint. You mean to tell me that if you're going to give God a part-time praise, He's going to give you a full-time benefit? You're going to give Him a part-time praise, and He's going to say, oh, well, that's good enough. I don't think so.
All right, next speaker, please, Mr. Woodward.
Good evening, Harry Woodworth, representing. Didn't make the budget meeting Monday, so I don't really know the details of the $180,000. Talked to a bunch of my neighbors about it who knew a lot more. It smells bad. At a minimum, I would offer that maybe you could explain in great detail to the community why you all deserve the extra money, because the rest of us who work for a living had the exact same expenses. I had to wear a 3-piece suit, a vest for years. I paid for it. Bought my own shoes, amazing. Drove my own car. I mean, all that stuff is part of life. If you have an expense that's unique, expense it, they'll give you the money back. It's no big deal. That's how the rest of the world works. I just don't understand why it's a $36,000. Trust us, we'll spend it wisely. Just expense it. No big deal. It's above board. If you're not going to do that, at least explain it, because right now, the smell on Northeast 15th Place and on the east side of Federal is not real positive. More like that spill down the road. The other thing is, y'all took the job, and I'm not complaining because I wouldn't do any one of your jobs for all the tea in China. I wouldn't, because you take a lot of crap from a lot of people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. But at the end of the day, there's a city charter that explains how it's supposed to run. We have a city manager sitting over here whose responsibilities are all spelled out. Your own responsibilities as being the executive guidance are also spelled out. That system's worked for about 100 years now.
If you want to change it so you have a king and somebody in charge and you want to do all this stuff and get a full-time salary and make us a full-time commission like a lot of places have, just do it. Change the bloody charter, put it up for a vote, and let's get on with it. But slipping this stuff in like this without a really good explanation makes you all look a lot worse than you really deserve to look at. At a minimum, just please explain it to people so everybody can see it. Pretty sure the reporter's taking notes. That's going to get around the community. We're going to work real hard to make sure it does. So just explain to us what in the world makes it so important that you should be exempt from the way the rest of the planet operates on expense basis, and you're just going to take the money up front. That doesn't make any sense at all. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Hey, good evening, commissioners. Thank you. Glad I could make it here. And Gregory Hartman, 1083 Southwest 25th Place, Coffee Harbor. First and foremost, you guys have a thankless job, so thank you for doing it. You do a lot of work, you attend a lot of meetings, you're a lot of places, and that's on top of your whatever you have to do 40 hours a week. So you guys take a lot of abuse, and everyone sees that, and the ones who don't maybe don't want to see it. So I think, thank you. It is thankless. So I think it goes appreciated in the community, the work you guys get done. It's hard up there, and like I said, not everyone wants to trade places with you. So it's definitely a thankless position. So thank you for putting in the work and putting in the extra hours. Secondly, I think the culvert is, it's a big deal. It's part of the infrastructure for the city, and trying to assign cost to one neighborhood. What bridge belongs to what neighborhood? What bridge belongs to who? Which road belongs where? It's kind of all connected and all one big part of the city and part of our infrastructure budget, at least to me. So to especially assess one of the nicer neighborhoods, nicer canals, I mean, I understand, oh, maybe they can afford it, maybe they can't, but we all share a burden for infrastructure in the city when it comes to property taxes. I don't think my property taxes cover just a little bit of asphalt in front of my driveway. It's a little beyond that. It's more overreaching. As far as, the line item with you guys and raises, I don't know what's comparable for other cities. What do other cities make? What's Boca Raton make? And what kind of people hold positions in cities where they can afford to be commissioners and not work? What kind of person is Boynton Beach? We're working class. So maybe without a proper comparison to what is normal for a commission of an 82,000 person city, what is appropriate? I'm not sure. I've never asked around, but I'm sure those are things that are available. So definitely too much work, not enough money, but it's a matter of assessment of what makes the most sense.
Please don't interrupt the speaker.
What makes the most sense. So I think there's options and solutions for everything. I think the amount of work put in is a lot by the commission. It's just a matter of assessing what is appropriate for how many hours are put in versus how much you're getting out, just like every other job. So overall, I think you guys are doing a great job, and a lot of work to get done, and continue the great work going into the next year. Great job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Looks like that concludes in-person public comment. Monty, do we have anybody online with their hands raised?
Vice Mayor, we have two hands raised. Our first hand raised is David Rosenthal.
Okay. All right, perfect. Mr. Rosenthal, can you hear me?
David, you're self-muted. Please click the microphone next to your name. David, please click the microphone next to your name to unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I'm David Rosenthal here, long-term resident of Boynton Beach, who has seen the bad, the good, and the ugly, and the great, of course. I just wanted to echo some of the stuff that has been said in regards to the resources needed for our commission. I believe that we, the taxpayers, deserve dedicated public officials that are committed to us first and foremost, not their private jobs. Many of us here in the West Side are happy to support whatever it takes to ensure that our elected body can focus on taxpayer dollars, policy, community, collaboration, grant efforts, and research needed to make good decisions. Our city staff, although they might be great, can only do so much. And our elected body is in place to cross-reference them, which takes time and dedication to do so. I would like to also point out that if we had fully committed representative in the past, we would not have had a $40 million loss of taxpayer dollar due to negligence or potential corruption, sorry, from the town square deal that the previous administration allowed to happen under their watch. I would also like to make note that the city staff and our elected body should never be intimidated or bullied by individuals whom have a place of corruption or have a history of corruption, bribery, pay to play, or asking interested parties whom have had city businesses to hire them for the sole purpose of lobbying the commission. I definitely won't say specific names, but they know who they are. Please do not allow the voices of a few affect the needs and wants of the many. The West Side supports you, and we hope that you can dedicate more of your time to us. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Monty, you said we have one more online?
Yes, our final speaker is Natalie Licata. Natalie, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I'm going to go ahead and start your time.
Okay. Hi, my name is Natalie. I live in District 1. I just want to thank our commissioners, our mayor. This is the most dedicated commissioners I've seen in Boynton Beach in over 18 years. You guys are so involved in the community. This is the first time I've actually
Ms.
spoken
Cotta, you're
with.
a little muffled.
Can you hear me?
Can you maybe change how you're speaking, just so we
Can
can
you,
get it on the record?
can you hear me?
I think that's a little bit better, yes.
Is that better? Okay. I was just saying that I wanted to thank the mayor and the commissioners. I feel like you guys have been the most dedicated commissioners I've seen in Boynton Beach for over 18 years. It's been the most informative group. You guys are so involved in the community. I do support improving the benefits of our hardworking elected officials. I feel that you guys are working tirelessly every day to make the city better. I've seen it, and you guys have resolved the mistakes from the past and have improved our city tremendously. Also, my commissioner has been great at helping me connect with different departments, police department and fire departments. I want to thank them as well for their help and their support in providing to my community, Renaissance Commons, with extra patrolling and helping with fire alarm projects that we have going on here. So thank you so much. Every email that that I submit to her or any calls that I have done to her, she has been very responsive. So I truly appreciate my commissioner and as well as everyone else. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. And Monty, just to clarify, there's nobody else online, correct?
That was the last speaker who raised their hands in the time that you called on.
Okay, is there anyone else with their hands are raised?
Yes, we do have one other hand raised that came after your call.
Okay, let's go ahead and let them speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Our other speaker is Christine Roberts. Christine, you're self-muted. Please click the microphone next to your name. Christine, you're still self-muted. Click the microphone next to your name. Christine, would you like to try one more time? I just need you to click the microphone next to your name to unmute yourself. Okay.
Okay, we're going to move on. All right, so that concludes public comment. Do we have any closing comments for this meeting from any of my colleagues? Nope. Okay. All right. So that concludes our fiscal year 23-24 budget workshop. Again, this is, go ahead, Mara, look like you want to speak.
I do.
All right.
Just before you close, I just wanted to thank the commission, the city manager, the executive team, the internal finance department, Anthony Davidson, Corinne Elliott, Fabio Baca, my accountant sitting in the audience there, for taking the time, really putting the effort into what the template is for managing the city's resources for the next year. This is a big project. It takes a lot of time and effort. The commission put their full effort into that this year. So did the city team as well. So I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you.
Thank you, and I think it's in due order that we give a nice round of applause for our city staff. All right, so that concludes our budget workshop. Again, the final budget is not adopted until September. There will be 2 hearings in September, so I look forward to see some additions and addendums until then. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Yeah.
Where's the gavel? I want the gavel. Spare no gavel for you. Sorry.
There you go. Boom, boom. Oh, you did great.
I didn't have to bug you about the time.